Was last night a defeat for Republicans? I mean, I understand that they lost a bit, but on balance, everything that happened,
Wisconsin.
The four big ones, 2 Florida and 2 Wisconsin. I mean, the 2 in Wisconsin, I mean, the voter ID and the Supreme Court thing.
Yeah, we in Wisconsin lost Supreme Court, but won on voter ID, right?
Right, which just goes to show you how much people believe in the idea, the basic idea that you ought to be able to prove who you are when you go to the polls and vote.
Yeah, I think we live in a very so what's kind of crazy for me is I don't think the traditional political lines work anymore. Because there's a lot of policies that the Trump administration, for example, is moving and that Republicans now support that are old Democratic positions. And Democrats are supporting crazy stuff. And they're also now starting to come around and look at Fetterman supporting some of the Republican positions.
Right.
So it's all jumbled.
Yeah. I mean, I have long said, and I'll take full credit for it, because I've said it for a long time, that today's Republicans are yesterday's Democrats.
Yeah.
And today's Democrats are yesterday's socialists. Find me a conservative anymore. It's hard. It's harder and harder. But I also understand that the world kind of moves and political party positions kind of move a little bit too. But, I had it said to me by our mutual good friend Dale Jackson when I was on his show earlier that it was a big loss for Republicans last night. I don't know that it was a big loss. I mean, I think you're not gaining anything or losing anything. The Supreme Court in Wisconsin was 4-3 liberal.
Right.
So that's a wash. I understand that that's a loss given the amount of attention and money, especially by Elon Musk. But I kind of feel like, and I said this at the beginning of the show, I feel there was a little bit of outsider syndrome going on. I don't care who you are and what your position is. I noticed this a lot in Alabama, and I've noticed it a little in Tennessee. When you feel like that there are people that aren't from around here coming in and telling you how you should do things, I don't care how much you agree with them. Sometimes people just kind of dig their heels in and go, no.
That's pretty common. I mean, the notion of you can't tell us what to do actually is very powerful. And I wouldn't want to run a Republican race right now. I certainly wouldn't want to run one if we have a trade war. But if Trump does as advertised and says, I'm going to lower prices, and he does, I don't care how he does it. If there's some kind of magic I'm missing on tariffs and stuff, then Republicans are situated pretty well. That's my big frustration is on the government stuff. People love reducing the federal bureaucracy. Like all but the most ardent Democrats who are like, government jobs are all the jobs. That's a huge win for Republicans. And then enforcing the law and immigration policy and stuff that he's doing there.
Crime and punishment. Yeah, all of that.
I mean, these are all winners. I'm just saying that the tariffs to me strike me as an unforced political error at a time where you don't need them.
Well, don't you? I mean, is there not room for, he believes that for 50, I mean, I'll give you a microcosmic, I almost tried to invent a word,
right?
A microcosm of an example. Donald Trump did not need to, and I know these are different things, but the way his mind thinks, okay? He did not need to move the United States Embassy to Jerusalem.
Right.
Part of his rationale was it's the right thing to do, and presidents for the last 50 years have said they're going to do it, said they want to do it, and then they never do it because it's going to be really hard and everyone's afraid of it.
Sure.
Let's do it. I don't know that he needed to tackle government waste, fraud, and abuse in the same way that he is. But he's doing it because he feels like it's the right thing to do.
Sure.
Is it the right, whether you agree with him or not, does he think it's the right thing to do to tackle this issue, even if it hurts him in the short term?
What is the issue that he's tackling? Is that we've been treated unfairly?
Yeah, we have a huge trade imbalance.
Yeah, and
for these countries.
Well, the trade imbalance is not the thing that is the concerning part. The reciprocal tariffs I can buy of like, okay, if you have tariffs on our stuff, we're going to put the same tariff on your stuff. So we'll keep the playing field even.
Sure.
If that's what we were doing here, I concede that argument as a negotiating
across
tactic.
The board.
Yeah, the across the board thing, I'm like, what are we doing?
We're encouraging manufacturing to come back to the United States of America.
We are the second largest manufacturing nation in the world.
Right. Do we manufacture as much stuff as we manufactured 40 years ago?
No.
Not by a long shot.
But do we manufacture more than anywhere else in the world? We accounted for 16.6%.
I don't think we manufacture as much as China.
They're at 31%. We're number 2. We are a massive manufacturing power in the United States. That's
so your argument is
true.
Your argument is we have enough American jobs here in the country and that we ought to be happy to import.
So let's talk about the jobs thing. I think that's really important. The idea that we're going to bring back 1950 style assembly lines just isn't true. We're going to have high value manufacturing, right?
You sound like Obama.
But that's what we're going to do.
You sound like Obama. You know that, right? And I'm not saying that to
upset you. But you sound like a union boss that's like, let's make it inefficiently.
Well, no. I'm saying, you're saying that forget those manufacturing jobs, they're not coming back?
They can come back, but it's not a one-to-one. That's unequivocal. That's just a fact. So, like, we're already a great manufacturing location in the world. If you want fairness in trade, fine. But if we're not doing this to bring down trade barriers so that people can buy our stuff easier, which I concede, then what are we doing? Why would we take a nation that doesn't have a tariff on our goods and thump them in the head?
Well, I mean, that reverts back to, it reverts back to that we're trying to negotiate a trade policy with those nations that is more beneficial for the United States of America. And I don't have a list of all the nations, so I can't.
But if they have no tariffs and we're saying, now you get tariffs, like, that's not reciprocity.
Right. I don't know. Once again, I don't know all of the nations that we're talking about, and I would depend on the hashtag never seen in the world that they're saying that it's a 10% across the board. I've not seen.
Yeah, I've looked at several different outlets reporting the same thing with but it's 10% across the board. And then some folks get custom rates, like China's was 34%, like Japan's is high. Different countries have them. But then what's going to happen is American competitors of companies that we would otherwise have competition from will say, you know what? I can artificially raise my price 20%. If their tariff's 25, they're automatically going to have that 25% price hike. So I can raise my prices too. And that's a government.
So you don't believe in the free market?
I believe in the free market, not government imposed price controls, which is what tariffs are.
Well, tariffs are taxes on imported goods.
Right.
That's not a price control. That's a tax.
I can tell you how much the price control is.
Well, but I mean, the language is words mean things, though,
Wait
Cameron.
A minute,
I mean,
you're a conservative that supports taxes now?
No. We have to have taxes to run things. We have to have taxes to have roads.
Right.
And I'm not a conservative and never have been, but be that as it may. I mean, I'm not a very good libertarian either. I wouldn't be in favor of taxes.
Conservative libertarian. I mean, this is the liberal position to say taxes. These are taxes. We want to tax the thing to get revenues for government.
No, we have trade agreements that we are trying to adjust to better benefit the United States of America. And I'm not even arguing in totality that what Trump's doing is right, because I've not seen it in its totality. So I can't argue it. But I would argue that if you're using this to renegotiate trade deals, I think that is a good place to be. And I understand why you would go above and beyond to try to get to the place that you're trying to get to.
But if I'm putting a tax on goods that American consumers are going to pay, when there's no tariff on the other side, that argument doesn't hold.
Like, give me an example of what you're talking about.
So the across the board, not reciprocal tariffs, the across the board 10% is saying if you're a country that sells goods into the United States and you don't have a tariff on ours.
What country are you talking about? Give me an example of a country that is going to be taxed at 10% that is currently at a zero. I mean, I just don't know.
I'll pull it up.
I just don't know of one.
This is the White House saying across the board 10%.
I don't know of any country that is.
You don't know of a country with no tariffs. So let me pull one up.
No. What I'm saying is they're going to match the tariffs from those countries.
No, they're saying that even if you don't have one, you get a 10%. We charge a 10% one.
Right.
On your imports.
And what are they charging?
I'm saying that some of them are charging none.
What countries are charging none?
I'm looking it up.
I mean, that's what I would love to see. No. I'm all about fewer taxes, and I think that Donald Trump wants to get to net zero. I believe that.
I don't know that. Because
why wouldn't he? What, you think he wants to raise taxes on the American consumer?
I think he is. I don't know why. But that to me is you're inherently raising prices on the American consumer, and you're saying, well, this will shift everything domestically. You're trying to realign a global supply chain to build everything here.
Well, and you seem to be giving up on it. like, well, that's just the way that it is.
I'm
That
just saying,
we need to accept the Chinese imports as they
no,
are.
I'm not saying Chinese. I'm simply saying that, like,
Well, that's where we get most of them from, Cameron.
My point is that we have supply chains around the world that we want to be our friends. We want to work with. So this idea that Canada or Mexico are somehow our enemy, they're our largest trading partner.
No, I mean, and I use the example on all the best words found on all the places that you can find your podcast. I use the example today that if I go to a car dealer and the car dealer wants the best deal for the car dealer and I want the best deal for myself, and if I eventually walk away because I feel like I'm not getting a deal that I need, that doesn't mean that the car dealer's my enemy. That means that I haven't gotten the deal that is good enough for me. That China might be our enemy, but that doesn't mean that Canada is our enemy because we would walk away from a trade deal with them. That means that we don't feel like we're getting the deal that we need. And if Canada wants to draw a line in the sand, so be it. That doesn't mean that they're not our friends.
So I looked up a couple of the ones that have zero trade or zero tariffs on our stuff would be like Singapore and Hong Kong, right? Mm-hmm. So they have zero. We would say if we send to you, we get 0. If you send to us, we get 10.
Right.
Or you get 10. My point is the goal would be 0 and 0 because that's free trade. That's back and forth.
Sure.
We have access to your market. You have access to ours. My whole point was I thought this was about getting there.
To 0.
Because that's a better deal for everybody. And that's free trade. That's consistent with what I understand and believe to be the best economic system because the government's out of the way.
I don't disagree with that.
So my point is why we're doing it differently now. I don't know.
I don't know. And I was on the radio, so I did not hear from Trump himself, and I've not been able to read what you're reading. Linda is next in Westmoreland. Hey, well, Linda, how are you?
I'm great. Cameron, I'm not sure where you were during the conversation that Donald had on TV. He had a list of every country, and he had a percentage that every country is tariffing us by, some up to 90%, 80%. You pulled up 2 of them that had 0%. I'm not sure how much business we do with those 2 countries, but you need to do your homework because, man, what he's trying to do is make these other countries pay what we're being tariffed on. And he's not even touching the 90% on that one country, I think was Vietnam. He just put it like a 37% tariff on it. So he's not like slamming people with these tariffs. You need to go look at every country and the tariffs that he has put on them.
But you know that it's not on them. It's on you. You're okay with the tax hike?
I am fine with it.
Okay.
We've got to do this to get to the other side of the fence. We've got to be patient.
What's on the other side of the fence?
We elected him to do.
I'm looking at his tote board here, and Linda, thank you for your call. The tote board, the reciprocal tariff tote board, and every country on there has a percentage that they're charging to the United States. So I don't know. I trust your information over there that the plan involves, but several people are saying that it doesn't involve individual countries that don't place any tariffs on us. I don't know.
Yeah, it said across the board, if this is retaliatory and we're going to do what you do to us, I understand that argument, but the goal should again be not to have tariffs.
Well, could it not be that we're going to charge a 10% across the board tariffs on all nations that have tariffs on us? Is that? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I haven't seen that caveat.
I would agree with you that if we're initiating tariffs on countries that have no tariffs on us, I would disagree with that part of the policy. Sure. Because that goes against what I want to get to and what I believe, and I could be wrong. I don't believe that Trump is interested in taxing the American consumer more. I do think he is interested in getting a better balance on monies flowing to and from countries, some of which don't like us very much, some of which do.
But. Yeah, and we should look at that from the global standpoint of China, not in our best interest. I actually understand, hey, we're going to do things here with our trade
I wouldn't
relationship.
understand the friendlies. I wouldn't understand that. Much.
Like if you're my friend, I want low trade barriers. I want this to be easy for us to do business together so that you stay my friend. That's the goal.
4049 says, I love all these tariff experts that call into the show. Well, you know what I love? The tariff expert that hosts the show. That's me, Matt Murphy. Expert, not